sure there's a lot you'd like to get to. Maybe start with Dylan Cease and how.
Yeah, there's a lot of good places to go. So, it typically starts on the mound. So we're thrilled to start there. Dylan was fantastic again. I mean, really, no hit stuff. The first hit was, well placed, but Dylan was fantastic and in control the whole way. And we'll get to the offense in a minute because I do think it's important. I do want to say a few things about it because I thought it was very relentless and as consistent of offensive game as we've had in a while. But to finish up with Dylan, I thought he threw the ball extremely well, and the leadoff walk in the seventh and the base hit to Story got him, but he did more than his part, and that's exactly what we need out of our starters, to be able to do just that.
And out of Dylan, you've been talking about it, like how good he has looked at times, back-to-back starts, and seems to really be validating what you guys have believed about him.
Yeah, listen, you see it all year, you pay attention to it. And he just continues to be more consistent. And he's just throwing the ball where he wants to. He's controlling counts better. If you looked up, and one of the indicators, not absolute indicator, was his ability to go into the seventh. His ability to be in the fourth at 40-something pitches, be efficient with his pitches, dominate early in the counts, and look to get quicker outs. And we know he's got strikeout stuff clearly, but those early outs and those controlled counts are important for his efficiency and for us, and to get more innings.
And about the consistent scoring of the offense, the way that those runs were built, you had some real heads up running. What pleased you today?
I just thought the offense dictated the game today. The pitching was in concert, but I thought the offense dictated the game, and just loved the consistency of at bats. Better as we went. He was hitting his spots early, in and out. Slider was pretty good. He was pitching, and the right, beginning of the second time through, Freddie with 2 out, nobody on, does his thing. Thought he gets on, and Luis makes him pay. Ball in the gap, and then the add-ons. It's just really good baseball in a lot of different ways to do it. But again, I thought Bello pitched well, but we consistently took quality at bats against him, and you can see him grind them out. And in the sixth, we were able to, fifth, we were able to get with Crony right out of the box. Not seeing where it's going, just, hey, I'm going to get on 2. First 3 steps were good, able to bring him home. And then that 6th inning, just Manny with a bag, Bogey with a bag. And then, so we beat him with that. And then we were able to be disciplined with 3 straight walks. Jack, so I think he's taking good at bats. I don't think I know he's taking good at bats. I'm pleased with Jackson. And, Oriano and Crony, they took their walks and add another run. The more runs we scored, obviously, the better. And it helps with our bullpen. And the add-on in the 7th, that was huge too. Toddy, Rise, a couple base hits, and then we got some situational hitting. Manny, big part of the field, moves Toddy over. O'Hearn, big part of the field, brings Toddy in. Now we have the flexibility to, we had to use Adam, obviously, had to use Morihone, who both did their parts. But we were able to, allow Morgan to come in, and he did a fantastic job to get the last 5 outs.
Right, it's a 4-1 lead, but that was a really good team, really good. The poise that David Morgan has continued to show as you've used him.
Great work, boys. He's just, he's got good arm. He's got a really good arm, and he's got a good sinker. His slider's good. He's got real weapons. And the biggest thing, like we said, he's not going to make it bigger than it is. He's going to go out and he's going to be on attack, and came in and immediately made quality pitches and got his guys. And obviously important to not have to go to the other guys as well. So Miller's turning into Morgan's turning that guy that we can clearly trust.
Mike, Dylan had an ERA up around 5 through the All-Star break. Since the break, it's back to the low 3s, moving more on that with his career. What has been the biggest difference you've seen from pre-break to post-break, if anything?
ERA can be a little bit tricky. He had a game where the highest amount of runs scored against him was some of the softest contact he's allowed all year. So, that's a part of it. But starter ERA can be a little bit more indicative, and I'm really confident that perhaps I wouldn't say this, and Dylan's a really strong-minded guy, but knowing he's going to be here maybe created a little bit more freedom for him. I don't know. He's a big part of what we do, and he knows that, but he's also human, and I just the matter of being the consistency we talked about with Ace's question. Just he's dominating the strike zone, and he's throwing a lot of quality pitches, and yeah, he's getting his strikeouts, but you know, he's also getting a lot of earlier outs and controlling counts and allowing him to go be who he is, and that's one of the better pitchers in our game.
Seventh inning, big spot there, 5-2, bases loaded, no outs, and Adam bounces back, strikes out a pair of guys, Mormon comes in, gets Anthony. Just what did you make of that moment, that situation there?
Yeah, you know, we go in and like I said, Dylan got a little runway, and the walk and the base hit got him, and you know, we weren't as clean as we needed to be as far as a hit batter and defensive play, which is very, very, very uncharacteristic. But we got to prove we're human some days. But the thing I love about it is, and it's indicative of our team, those human things are going to happen. They just are. You know, it's how you handle those things. So Jason Adam being able to get in that situation, now we've got traffic, now we got runs scored, and then be able to go, okay, I'm just gonna go bear down, I'm gonna execute, I'm gonna stay in the moment, and I'm gonna trust my ability. And he goes punch out, and then it was Maury Honestar. And again, same thing, I'm gonna come in, gets behind in the count. Okay, I can do this, I got this, I'm gonna go attack, and that's ultimately what this is about. You know, it's really about being as consistent as you can possibly be, and then that's the human part and the challenging part. And then the other part is when things don't quite go as well, regardless of situation, offensively, defensively, pitching. You go, okay, let's cut it right here and let's right the ship and let's get back to it and play the game the right way. And that's what great players and great teams do.
A big part of your guys' win today was like the hustle plays. A couple of times throughout the game, there was a couple. What can you say about the level of effort that your team brings on a daily basis?
Yeah, I'm glad you recognize that. You know, our guys' care factor and effort level is really beyond question. You know, these guys, mentioned Crony getting out of the box. You know, we do all the little things that when you see on a field from my seat and really from the seats that sit in Petco. You know, and you know, effort is not something to be taken for granted. It is something we expect, but you know, it's what the guys do. They show up to win. They show up to play the game the right way, and it was on display again today.
Cronenworth also extended his on-base streak to 15 games. What can you say about his contributions?
I mean, Jake, again, you know, seems like, you know, he's one of these guys that, you know, we got a lot of people that carry the mail for us and we talk about, and rightfully we can talk about Jake, but Jake, you know, similar to Bogey, just playing good baseball. And Jake's just a winning player. You know, he can go and do a little bit of everything. He's taken, you know, it's a tough walk he got today. You know, the lead double to extend the lead. Plays excellent defense. Just a smart winning player that knows what the game calls for and has the ability to execute it. So he's a big part of our club.
Hey, Mike, games are so often won on the margins. I think the first 4 runs you guys scored all 2-out hits.
Yes.
Thoughts on that? The 2-out hits, clutch hitting, and winning games.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. I mean, we talk about that a lot. You know, I was talking to David Macias, our first base and base running and outfield coach. Before the game, we were just talking about, you know, incrementally how we win, and I just love talking about that. And me and David got in a good conversation. We were talking about Skip Bertman, you know, the long-time LSU head coach, and I remember growing up and studying him and listening to him at clinics, and you know, he just talked about the game being, you know, chances are proposition, and what we're trying to do at every single turn is create an edge. And the more we can be aware of situations, the more we can scale them back. You know, that's what we use analytics for, but then also what's within that moment that tells us how to, you know, how we want to compete, and you know, that's how we play the game, looking to always grab an edge and see and do what the game calls for, and you know, allow our players the freedom to see and do what they calls for, because I do believe that with all confidence in having done it, championship players think and do for themselves, and so our job is prepare them and guide them. But you know, the 2-out hits are big. You know, 2 out, nobody on, gets back to that give nothing away. You know, it's still a third of, they still have to get a third of the inning. And so we still, you know, we're not going to give that a bat away. We're going to figure out a way. And I just thought a lot of good things were on display tonight. And teams that are as talented as we are, that are focused like that and compete to that degree consistently, are really hard to beat.
Was their pitcher slow to the plate on a couple later in his outings, their starting pitcher, and you guys were able to take advantage of that on your base running?
I mean, we look to be opportunistic, you know, at all times. So, you know, the guys ran when they saw there was an opportunity.
And this bullpen, have you been around a better one?
Well, last year's bullpen was good as well, but this is, you know, listen, this is as good a bullpen as you're going to find. And so, like I said, the ability for Morgan to go do what he did and Wandy throwing like he is, you know, Yuki's been more consistent. It just lengthens it out. So it's a very, very talented, big part of our club.
I mean, you struck out 14 last night out of your bullpen. That's a pretty good number. And then today, it's the last guy who's throwing 99.
Right, yeah, it's a very talented bullpen, and the thing about our bullpen is they're all together, they're all, like I say, they're very aggressive, they challenge the zone, but their preparation is elite. You know, they all individually and as a group are aware of what they're looking to do. They work in concert with our catchers very well. You know, clearly the staff's working with them and talking to them and creating clarity about what it looks like, you know, from a competition game planning standpoint, but these guys do their own work, and that's why I say, you know, so, you know, yeah, the talent's there, but the other intangibles are in display that are really a shining example of what's right with, you know, successful major league players.